it's pretty cool. So let's go ahead and go into the topic of the podcast, which is decision making. Later on, we're going to talk about Spreaker, a podcasting platform that I'm completely in love with. And I just want you guys to get involved, especially if you're interested in podcasting or listening to podcasts. You got to get on Spreaker. Spreaker is, I'll take that over iTunes, to be honest with you, because there's just so much you can do. But we'll get into that stuff in a little while. So, decision making. Decision making is crucial throughout our entire life, whether you realize it or not. When I got into treatment, it was my best decision making that got me there. It wasn't like I was picking all winners and then I ended up in treatment. I was making bad decision after bad decision and years of it that got me into treatment. So whether we're aware of it or not, decision making is a part of our daily life and of our entire life. And decision making today affects us 5, 10, 15 years down the road. And now that's a hard thing to remember on a daily basis, especially when you're making hundreds of little decisions that you don't think matter, but they do. And if you can start thinking just a quick thought about before you make any type of decision or before you let someone else make a decision for you, that decision, no matter how big or small, is going to affect your life 5, 10, 15 years down the road. So it's kind of like right now, I'm 40 years old. I can look back 10, 20 years, 5 years. If I would have made some things different, if I would have made some different decisions, I wouldn't be here right now. I'd probably be in a different position. Maybe worse, probably better. It worked out the way it worked out. I can't change the past. I'm happy to be here right now at this second behind this microphone. However, just try to look at things that way. So I'm going to go through my decision-making process, starting from 2012, and we're going to go over every single. No, I'm playing. We're not going to go over every single decision I made. However, we're going to go over some key decisions that I look back at now. So, in 2011, in December, actually 31st, 2011, on New Year's Eve, my wife and family moved out. They moved out for, I believe, the second time. And we were separated, which that turned into about 18, 19 months of separation. However, March 2012, I can reflect back and wake up. And I remember waking up and I knew something was wrong. It finally hit me, and I knew something had to change. I knew I had a problem, and I didn't know what to do. But it literally just hit me that one morning in March 2012, while I was waking up to a beer and to drugs, and not really even sleeping. Just I say waking up, but I say waking up because it was the morning, but the truth of it, I was probably already awake. So I started to see that I couldn't function without using or drinking, and I had to use and drink to go to sleep. I had to use and drink to wake up. So I noticed that I had a problem. I just didn't know what to do. So later on that month, I made the decision to tell my wife what was going on, because she had left me, and this whole time she thought I had a drinking problem. She thought I had a drinking problem, and it was a drinking problem, but it was also a drug problem that she didn't know about. So during the time that I was with her, I was, a complete jerk, and I was very verbally abusive, to where she would be in tears and because of the words that I would tell her and yell at her and things I would say, and I was a complete jerk. And so, in March when I realized that I had a problem, I wanted to let her know that, that wasn't the person she left was not the real me. And I wanted her to know that I wasn't just being a jerk, because she deserved it. I was being a jerk because I had a huge issue with drugs and alcohol. So we had lunch together, and I told her I need to tell you something. And it's funny because, just earlier today, this is like 3 years sober almost, and I had to tell her, hey, I got to tell you something. We don't change, guy. We just don't change. It's funny. And I'll tell you what I had to tell her a little bit later. But, however, so I told her I had to tell you something, and she was like, what? And I was like, I want you to know that this whole time that I've been a jerk to you, it's not really me. I've been addicted to meth since I got out of prison in 2006, and this is 2012. From 2 weeks from getting out of prison, I was introduced to it at a party. I was drunk, and it's just something that really grabbed me and didn't let go. And as the months and years went on, the addiction got worse. So I just told her, it's not you. It's obviously me, and it's because, I got a real issue with drugs and alcohol. And so, I think that was kind of my cry for help. Like I said, I didn't know what to do, but, I told somebody. So, I'm not going to get into that whole conversation, what happened after that, but, I let her know. About a week after that, another decision. This is kind of my aha moment that I had in my disease. I was talking with my buddy Rudy, who was actually living in the back house of the house that I lived in, that my wife left. So it was just me in the house in front, and then we had a 2-bedroom apartment in the back that we rented out. But my friends rented it out, so they never really paid because all we were doing was using. So anyway, this thought came to me that, I have a problem. I didn't know what to do. I knew something had to change. And I knew that everything that was going on right now, which is, March 2012, was going to affect the next 5, 10, 15 years of my life. And that just made perfect sense to me. And I don't know why I got that thought in my head, but I thank my higher power for putting that thought in my head, because off of that, I made the decision to rent out my house. Because I knew that if I was going to stop using and drinking, I had to be out of the very place where I used and drank all the time, which was my house. So I really didn't have a plan of where I was going. Well, I did have a plan. I was going to go stay at this place in San Antonio, Texas, downtown. It was like a homeless shelter that took in people and they took in people with substance abuse problems and alcoholism, stuff like that. So my plan was to go stay down there for free, rent out my house, and get my life back together. Well, it didn't happen like that. I did rent out my house though. So I killed one place of where I was using and drinking. I actually killed the main place where I was using and drinking. So that forced me to be running around from house to house, very uncomfortable. I had to use here, use there, use, over there. And it was just, was not a good deal. So, but looking back, it's the reason why I rented out the house, so I wouldn't have a place to use. So, I got rid of that place. I rented out the house, and so here comes, July of that year of 2012. And I'm staying at my parents' house. I'm staying with my wife in her townhouse. I'm staying at another rental house. So I'm staying at about 3 different places, every other day. So, in July 2012, it all comes crashing down. And that's actually what my ebook's about the last 3 days before I go into treatment. So, I did get into treatment in July. I left 4 days later. I went on a 7-day binge. And another moment of clarity I had was the night before I went back to treatment. I didn't know I was going back to treatment yet, but I was at my parents' house and everybody was pissed off at me and my wife was going to divorce me. My parents weren't really talking to me and I knew what I had to do and I knew I had to go back to treatment and I knew I had to get help. And I knew it was going to be a long road to recovery, but it had to start somewhere. And I knew it had to start by going back to treatment. And so that decision was made, and the next morning, my dad took me back to treatment. And that's really what kick-started my recovery. I guess I could go back to, my wife moving out and me understanding that finally understanding that I had a problem. I don't know when the beginning of my recovery was. It's just those decisions that I made were crucial. And still today, the decision making, it's the whole point of the topic, is still crucial. It's decisions I made in 2012 is the reason why I'm here. It's sober. So the decisions I make today are going to affect 5-10 years. But the problem is we don't always think like that. We don't think down the road. And even in recovery, we're trained not to think like that. We're trained to just stay sober today. Just, think of today. Just make decisions for today. And that's true. But at some point, you still got to look down the road. And I promise you, it will change your life down the road. For the best, for the better. The only problem is being conscious of those decisions you make today. So decision making is just a huge part of my life, a huge part of recovery, even though on a daily basis I'll forget that. But still, I thought it was an important topic just to bring up here on podcast number 7. Just be mindful and aware of your decision making. Go back and look at some of the decisions you made. Maybe you should have made some different, and the decisions you're making today in recovery and in your life. So, I shouldn't split those up. I mean, recovery is our lives today, is it not? So, take a look at those things and, just reflect, maybe write some things down and maybe write some future goals for decision making. And one of the things I did in early recovery that really helped me out was I gave the power of decision making over to the people who cared about me. So my counselor was making decisions for me. My parents were making decisions for me, and my wife was making decisions for me. So that really helped. In 3 years sober, I keep on saying 3 years sober. I'm not 3 years sober. I've got like 2 more months. But even now is a pretty good idea it's a pretty good idea even now for me to turn that decision making over still to the people who care about me, because you guys probably heard this cliche and I talked about it earlier. I didn't roll up to treatment because I was picking winners. I rolled up to treatment because of my bad decision making. So it only makes sense to give that power over to someone who cares about us. So that's that. That's my little topic today on decision making. You can go check out my blog today. It's the top 5 things you must have when you're going to treatment. There's you guys know I work at a treatment center, and if you guys are going to treatment or you know somebody who's about to go to treatment, there's 5 things that you must take to treatment with you that'll help you stay there in treatment. I see people all the time bring the wrong stuff or don't bring enough stuff. So I created just a little blog of 5 things that you're going to want to take with you on your way to treatment. I also talked about a little about how I had to tell my wife something, back in 2012. Hey, there's something I need to tell you. And just, moments ago, I had to do the, babe, I need to tell you something. So I'm going to tell you what that is in my blog also. So go to my blog and listen to that. Go to my blog and read about that. It's pretty funny. But it's, we never change. It's the behavior. We're always, we're always doing something wrong. We just are. And it's if you can find the humor in